In this segment, I'm going to talk about how to set up grid and snap settings in Scene Designer to more accurately place entities in the scene, especially if your entities are designed to match certain grid and snap measurements. So this is the holodeck scene that ships with Scene Designer, and in it, each one of these hallway pieces is a separate entity that they were all snapped together. And the easiest way to show this off, normally when I translate, it's very smooth. And in order to snap these pieces together, I would need to zoom in really far and try to figure out whether or not it's lined up, and it can be pretty disastrous. But instead, you can set up Scene Designer to snap to a grid. So the first thing you want to do is, based on how you've authored your entities, you want to set up your grid and snap settings appropriately. So if you come in here, I can set up my rotation snap. I've set up here to have a 45-degree increment. My translation snap, I've told it to snap to 100 units. Each one of these is 100 units wide. And the scale snap is set to snap to 0.1, which will actually make that 0.25 while we're in here. You can also set up how many snaps per grid line you have in the grid section in the options. In this case, we want 1 snap per grid line, so you'll see in a moment how that works. So now if I come up to the toolbar and I can turn on Translate Snap, I can turn on Rotate Snap and Scale Snap. And now when I translate, it's actually snapping by units of 100. So right now this object was not aligned. Let me back up until he was to his original position. So now that he's in his original position, you can see that I can easily snap these together by taking this end cap off, moving it over, snapping this over to there, and I've now created a new hallway over here with an end cap. Let's see a little bit better in this view. And we can also, if we want to rotate things as well, we have Rotate Snap, which will snap by 45 degrees. This, as long as you've designed your assets appropriately for this, it can make snapping together worlds, say dungeons for example, very, very easy to do. And here's the scale snap of the 25% scale. And the nice part about turning on these snap settings is that you don't have to worry about manually lining things up. Scene Designer can take care of that for you with the grid. And notice that we're snapping one grid item every time we move an item. So that's pretty much it for the grid and snap settings. For a scene like this, it can be very useful to use the shift cloning technique as well. So if you hold down the shift button while you're translating something, you can clone it. And so that's how this scene was built, was all of these various things were placed in the world and snapped together, and then simply shift cloned to clone different hallway segments and move them to the appropriate location.